Lena Carter had always been a woman of simple tastes. She found joy in worn paperback novels, the quiet hum of the library where she worked, and the warmth of her husband Daniel's embrace whenever he returned from his frequent business trips, his eyes crinkling with affection as he whispered, "Missed you, my love." Their life was modest but full of genuine happiness, or so it seemed until the day Lena decided to step into La Belle Étoile, the most exclusive boutique in the city, hoping to find a dress worthy of their upcoming 10th anniversary. The moment she pushed through the glass doors, the air thick with the scent of luxury perfume, she felt the weight of judgmental stares. The sales associates, clad in sleek black uniforms, eyed her faded jeans and thrift store bag with barely concealed disdain. The lead saleswoman, Clarissa Montgomery, a woman whose sharp features matched her sharper tongue, approached with a plastic smile. "Can I help you?" she asked, though her tone suggested the opposite. Lena, ever polite, replied, "I'd love to browse your evening gowns, please." Clarissa's smirk deepened as she gestured vaguely toward the back. "Our collections start at $5,000. Are you sure you're in the right place?" The other staff tittered, and Lena's cheeks burned, but she kept her voice steady. "I'd still like to look." Clarissa sighed dramatically. "I'm afraid we can't have unprepared clients handling the merchandise. Security risk, you understand." The dismissal was clear, and Lena, humiliated, turned on her heel and left, her vision blurring with unshed tears as she fumbled for her phone and dialed the one person who always knew how to fix things, Daniel. He answered on the first ring, his voice warm until he heard her trembling breath. "Lena, what's wrong?" She swallowed hard. I just got kicked out of La Belle Étoile." There was a beat of silence, then a slow, dangerous exhale. "Wait for me near the fountain outside. I'll be there in 20 minutes. An hour later, a convoy of black SUVs with tinted windows roared into the shopping district, screeching to a halt in front of the boutique. The doors flew open, and out stepped Daniel Carter, but not the Daniel Lena knew in his usual casual sweaters and jeans. This man was dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, his Rolex glinting under the sun, his expression icy as he strode toward the entrance, flanked by bodyguards. The boutique staff, who had been smirking moments earlier, froze as recognition dawned. This was Daniel Carter, the reclusive billionaire CEO of Carter Global Holdings, whose face graced Forbes, but who rarely appeared in public. Clarissa, paling, rushed forward. "Mr. Carter, what an honor. How may we assist you today?" Daniel didn't spare her a glance, instead walking straight to the security monitors, where footage of Lena's humiliation played on loop. His voice, when he finally spoke, was deceptively calm. "That woman you just threw out? That's my wife." The blood drained from Clarissa's face. The manager, a balding man named Laurent, stumbled over his words. "Sir, we had no idea. This is a terrible misunderstanding." Daniel cut him off with a raised hand. "No, there's no misunderstanding. You judged her for her clothes instead of her character. That's not a mistake, that's a choice." With a single call, he had the boutique's ownership records pulled up, revealing that La Belle Étoile was, in fact, a subsidiary of Carter Holdings. Lawrence's knees nearly buckled. You own us." Daniel's smile was razor-thin. Not for long. By the end of the hour, Clarissa and the entire staff were fired. The boutique was closed indefinitely, and the story was already leaking to the press. Outside, Lena watched it all from the car, her heart pounding, not with triumph, but with sadness. She had never wanted revenge. She had only wanted to be treated with decency. When Daniel slid into the seat beside her, his anger melted into concern. "You're not happy," he observed. She sighed. "I just wish people could see beyond surfaces." He kissed her forehead. "Then let's make sure they do." In the weeks that followed, the viral story of the billionaire's revenge sparked debates about elitism and kindness. Lena, rather than basking in the spotlight, convinced Daniel to repurpose the boutique into Lena's Haven, a nonprofit that provided professional attire and job training for underprivileged women. Clarissa, shamed and unemployed, eventually sought out Lena to apologize, tearfully admitting her arrogance. To everyone's surprise, Lena forgave her and even offered her a job at the Haven, believing in second chances. Daniel, watching his wife's unwavering compassion, realized anew why he had fallen in love with her, not for wealth or status, but for her heart. On their anniversary, he took her back to the now transformed boutique, where women of all backgrounds shopped with dignity. As they danced under the soft lights, Lena whispered, "You didn't have to buy a whole store for me." Daniel laughed, pulling her closer. "No, but I'd buy the whole world if it made you smile." And in that moment, surrounded by love and redemption, Lena knew no boutique, no billionaire status, could ever compare to the life they'd built together. Lena Carter sat in the quiet hum of the library's back office, her fingers tracing the worn edges of a donated book as she tried to shake off the lingering sting of her humiliation at La Bellatoile. The memory of Clarissa's condescending smirk and the way the other sales associates had snickered behind their hands still burned in her mind. But she refused to let it break her, because she had long ago learned that true strength wasn't in wealth or status, but in the quiet resilience of a heart that refused to be hardened by cruelty. She had met Daniel Carter 10 years ago in this very library, when he had wandered in during a rainstorm, drenched and disheveled, asking for shelter and, to her surprise, a copy of The Count of Monte Cristo, a book she had adored since childhood. And as they talked about revenge, justice, and the dangers of pride, neither of them could have guessed that the soft-spoken man before her was actually one of the most powerful CEOs in the country, a billionaire who had built his empire from nothing, but refused to let it define him. He had kept his wealth a secret from her for months, not out of deceit, but because, for the first time in his life, he wanted someone to love him for who he was, not what he could give them. And when he finally revealed the truth, taking her to his penthouse overlooking the city, his hands trembling as he confessed, Lena had simply laughed and said, "I don't care about the money, Daniel. I just care that you finally trust me enough to let me in." Now, as she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and forced herself to focus on sorting the returned books, her phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Meeting ran late. Home by 8. I love you." She smiled, but before she could reply, the library's front door burst open, and in strode Clarissa Montgomery, her designer heels clicking sharply against the hardwood, her face a mask of barely contained fury that Lena's breath hitched as every head in the library turned to stare. Patrons, her co-workers, even old Mrs. Whitaker, who had been dozing in the fiction section, all now wide-eyed at the sight of the impeccably dressed woman storming toward the front desk like a hurricane in Prati. Clarissa hissed, slamming her perfectly manicured hands onto the counter, her diamond bracelet glinting under the fluorescent lights. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Playing the meek little wife, while your husband destroys people's lives for fun." Lena blinked, her pulse quickening, but she refused to flinch. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said evenly, though the tremble in her voice betrayed her. Clarissa let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, please. The whole city knows by now. Daniel Carter, the billionaire, shut down La Bellatoile because his poor, delicate wife couldn't handle a little rejection. Do you have any idea what you've done? I lost my job. My reputation is ruined. And for what? Because your ego couldn't take it." The venom in her words was sharp enough to draw blood, and Lena felt her cheeks burn. But before she could respond, the library's director, Mr. Harris, rushed over, his face pale. "Ms. Montgomery, this is a place of quiet study. If you have an issue, take it outside." Clarissa's eyes flashed. "Oh, I have an issue," she spat, turning back to Lena. "But it's not just with her. It's with him. Your precious husband didn't just fire me. He made sure no high-end retailer in the city would ever hire me again. He blacklisted me, Lena. Do you understand what that means?" Lena's stomach twisted. She hadn't known that. Daniel had promised her he'd only dealt with the boutique's management, not the employees personally. Had he lied? Or had his rage on her behalf gone further than he'd admitted? Swallowing hard, she straightened her shoulders. "If that's true, then I'll talk to him. That wasn't what I wanted." Clarissa scoffed. "Save it. You got your little revenge fantasy, and now you get to play the merciful saint. How convenient." She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper laced with poison. "But here's something you should know, Mrs. Carter. Your husband isn't the saint you think he is. Ask him about the real reason he was in this library 10 years ago. Ask him about Eduardo Vega." The name meant nothing to Lena, but the way Clarissa said it, like a weapon, sent a chill down her spine. Before she could demand an explanation, Clarissa spun on her heel and marched out, leaving behind a stunned silence and 100 unanswered questions that night, as Daniel shrugged off his suit jacket and loosened his tie, his face softening the moment he saw her. Lena didn't greet him with her usual smile. Instead, she crossed her arms and said, "Clarissa came to the library today." Daniel froze, his expression darkening. "What did she say to you?" Lena studied him, the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers flexed at his sides. And for the first time in their marriage, she wondered if there were parts of him she still didn't know. "She said you blacklisted her, that you made sure she'd never work in the city again. Did you?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes." The bluntness of his answer startled her. "Why? I never asked you to do that." Daniel's eyes burned with something fierce. "Because no one humiliates you and gets away with it, Lena. No one." She shook her head, frustration bubbling up. "That's not your call to make. And who the hell is Eduardo Vega?" The name hit Daniel like a physical blow. His face went pale, his breath catching, and for a heartbeat, he looked almost guilty. Then, just as quickly, his mask of control slid back into place. "Where did you hear that name?" Lena's heart pounded. "Clarissa. She said to ask you about him." The moment Jake Reynolds stepped out of Diane Harris's office, the atmosphere in the Tesla factory shifted palpably. A charged silence hung in the air, punctuated only by the distant whir of machinery and the occasional hushed whisper as employees pretended to focus on their work while stealing glances at him. Every step Jake took toward Elon Musk's office felt like walking through a surreal dream, his pulse pounding so loudly in his ears that it nearly drowned out the rhythmic clanking of robotic arms assembling car frames in the distance. The Slack channel, which had been a frenzy of memes and nervous jokes just minutes earlier, had gone eerily quiet, as if the entire company was collectively holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Even the usually bustling cafeteria was subdued, with clusters of engineers and production line workers murmuring over coffee, their conversations laced with speculation. Do you think he'll get fired on the spot? What if Elon laughs it off? What if this ends up on Twitter by noon? Each theory more dramatic than the last. As Jake neared the glass-walled office, he could see Elon inside, now fully awake, leaning back in his chair with his phone in one hand and a half-finished cup of cold coffee in the other. The photo was clearly visible on Elon's screen, and for a heart-stopping second, Jake considered turning around and bolting. But before he could retreat, Elon looked up, his sharp blue-gray eyes locking onto Jake's through the glass. There was no anger in his expression, no visible irritation, just an unreadable calm that somehow made the situation even more terrifying. The door was slightly ajar, and Elon motioned for him to enter with a casual flick of his wrist, as if this were just another routine meeting. The office was exactly as Jake had imagined, cluttered with prototypes of Tesla's latest hardware, whiteboards covered in equations and schematics, and a disorganized pile of Mars colonization notes stacked haphazardly in one corner. Elon didn't speak at first, instead swiveling his chair slightly to face Jake fully before setting his phone down on the desk, the infamous photo still glowing on the screen. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, until Elon finally broke it with a single, unexpected question. "How long was I out?" Jake blinked, momentarily thrown. Maybe 20 minutes, he managed, his voice coming out hoarse. Elon nodded, rubbing his temples. "Huh, felt longer." Then, to Jake's utter disbelief, the corner of his mouth twitched almost like he was fighting a smile. "You know, I've been telling people for years that sleep is optional. Guess this proves otherwise." Jake didn't know whether to laugh, apologize, or brace for the inevitable but. Elon leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "Here's the thing, Jake. That photo. It's already everywhere. Internal servers, private chats, hell. I've gotten 3 texts from SpaceX guys asking if I'm okay." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "And now I've got PR breathing down my neck, worried this'll leak to Bloomberg by lunchtime." Jake's stomach dropped. "Sir, I didn't mean for it to blow up like this. It was just a dumb joke for the team, I know." Elon interrupted, waving him off. But here's the problem. If I fire you, it looks like I can't take a joke. If I ignore it, it looks like I'm weak. And if I laugh about it, the board starts questioning whether I'm taking Tesla seriously enough. He paused, studying Jake. So here's what we're going to do. Jake braced himself. You're going to help me turn this into a win. Before Jake could process that, Elon grabbed his laptop, spun it around, and pulled up a mock-up of a Tesla-branded energy pod, a sleek, futuristic nap capsule with the tagline, "Recharge like the boss." We've been sitting on this design for months, Elon said, grinning now. And thanks to you, we've got the perfect viral moment to launch it. Jake could only stare, his mind racing. Was Elon Musk pivoting on a humiliation, turning a joke at his expense into a marketing opportunity? Then Elon's expression shifted, just slightly. Oh, and Jake, next time you catch me sleeping, maybe just nudge me instead of snapping a pic. The tension shattered. Jake exhaled, a disbelieving laugh escaping him. Noted, sir. As he left the office, the factory's usual noise rushed back in, but now it was laced with something new. Curiosity, relief, and beneath it all, the unspoken realization that maybe, just maybe, the man at the top wasn't as untouchable as they'd all thought. The moment Jake stepped out of Elon's office, the factory floor, which had been buzzing with nervous energy, erupted into a cacophony of whispers, stifled laughter, and outright cheers. The tension that had gripped the building for the past hour dissolved like smoke as word spread that Jake hadn't been fired, that Elon had laughed it off, and that, impossibly, the whole thing was being spun into some kind of corporate rebrand. Employees who had been nervously refreshing Slack now crowded around Jake, clapping him on the back, demanding details. What did he say? Is he pissed? Did he really just turn this into a nap pod ad? Their voices overlapping in disbelief. Across the room, Diane Harris stood with her arms crossed, watching the scene with a mix of exasperation and relief. She had spent the last 40 minutes fielding panic calls from PR, legal, and even a board member who had somehow already heard about the incident. Now, as she watched Elon stride out of his office, his usual restless energy restored, she realized the crisis had been averted or, more accurately, hijacked and repurposed into something else entirely. Elon didn't address the crowd. He didn't need to. Instead, he walked straight to the nearest whiteboard, grabbed a marker, and began sketching what looked like a modified version of the energy pod he'd shown Jake, scribbling notes about materials, dimensions, and inexplicably a built-in espresso machine. The employees closest to him exchanged glances. This was classic Elon. A crisis became a tangent became a project, and suddenly, the entire company's priorities realigned around whatever had captured his attention. Within minutes, a team of engineers had been summoned to discuss feasibility, while the marketing department scrambled to draft a press release about Tesla's new commitment to employee wellness. Meanwhile, outside the factory walls, the internet was already doing what it did best. Though the photo hadn't officially leaked, blurry screenshots had begun circulating on Reddit and Twitter, accompanied by wild speculation. Is this real? Did Musk finally collapse from overwork? Fake, probably a deep fake. Memes sprouted like weeds. Elon photoshopped into history's most famous napping scenes, the Titanic door, the Lion King's Pride Rock. Elon as a sleeping cyborg mid-recharge. Elon curled up in a Doge meme with the caption, "Much sleep. Very tired." The hashtag #NapElon began trending in San Francisco, then nationwide. By midday, even mainstream outlets like CNBC and The Verge had picked up the rumor mill, running speculative pieces with titles like, "Is Elon Musk's work ethic sustainable?" And Tesla employees report brutal hours. Is the CEO feeling the strain? Back at the factory, Jake's phone was blowing up with notifications, texts from friends, LinkedIn connection requests, even a DM from a Wall Street Journal reporter asking for comment. He ignored them all, still processing the whiplash of the last few hours. 1 minute, he'd been sure he was about to be escorted out of the building by security. The next, he was being hailed as the guy who'd punked Elon Musk and lived. It was surreal, but beneath the relief, a nagging thought lingered. What happens when the hype dies down? Elon might have turned this into a win today, But the man was famously mercurial. Would he still be laughing about it tomorrow? As if on cue, Elon's voice cut through the noise. "Jake, get over here." He was standing near the prototype bay, surrounded by engineers, holding up a 3D printed model of the pod. "We need a name for this thing. And since you're the reason we're building it, you get first dibs." The room fell silent, all eyes on Jake. He hesitated, then grinned. "How about the Musk ZZZ?" Elon's bark of laughter was answer enough. The internet had officially lost its collective mind over Nap Elon. What began as an internal joke at Tesla's Fremont factory had metastasized into a full-blown cultural phenomenon, spreading across social media platforms with the relentless energy of a viral wildfire. By noon Pacific time, the blurred Slack screenshot of Elon Musk asleep at his desk had been repurposed into every conceivable meme format, side-by-side comparisons with historical figures known for their work ethic. Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, and even a drowsy-looking Albert Einstein, spliced into movie scenes where characters famously dozed off. The Godfather's Michael Corleone nodding off during a meeting, Frodo sleeping in Rivendell, and even reimagined as Renaissance paintings with dramatic chiaroscuro lighting and captions in faux Latin. The sheer absurdity of it all had turned Elon, for perhaps the first time in his public life, into something approaching relatable. The man who colonized Twitter, launched cars into space, and threatened to put chips in human brains was now, for a brief and glorious moment, just another exhausted guy who had fallen asleep at work. But while the internet reveled in the joke, the reaction inside Tesla's corporate offices was far more complicated. The PR team, led by a perpetually stressed woman named Lydia Cho, had spent the morning in damage control mode, fielding calls from journalists, investors, and even a few concerned shareholders who wanted to know if Elon's impromptu nap was a sign of deeper issues at the company. Lydia had prepared 3 separate press statements, one dismissive. Elon Musk frequently works overnight at Tesla facilities. This was a momentary break between meetings. One humorous. Even visionaries need to recharge. Stay tuned for exciting new wellness initiatives. And one defensive. This is a private matter. Tesla's focus remains on innovation. She had expected Elon to choose the first option. Instead, to her horror, he had taken matters into his own hands and tweeted a single, cryptic message. "The revolution will be well rested. #MustEZ." The tweet, naturally, exploded. Within minutes, #MustEZ was trending globally, and Tesla's social media team, usually scrambling to keep up with Elon's unpredictable online presence, seized the opportunity. They posted a teaser image of the sleek, pod-like nap station Elon had sketched earlier, along with a cheeky poll. What should we name it? 1. The Recharge Pod. 2. The Tesla Snooze. 3. The Elon Dreamliner. The response was overwhelming, with thousands of votes pouring in within the first hour. Meanwhile, in the Fremont factory, engineers who had been pulled from their usual projects to work on the pod prototype exchanged bemused glances. Just yesterday, they had been optimizing battery efficiency. Now, they were debating whether the nap pod should include white noise features or built-in meditation guides. Jake, meanwhile, was still reeling from his sudden, accidental fame. His LinkedIn inbox was flooded with messages, recruiters offering him jobs at rival tech companies. "Your boldness is exactly what we need." Podcast hosts inviting him to discuss workplace humor in the age of viral media, and even a few randoms asking if he could get them a discount on a Model S. His co-workers treated him like a minor celebrity, half-jokingly asking for selfies or begging him to please take a photo of me next so I can go viral too. But beneath the surface, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this was all temporary. Elon's mood could shift in an instant. The internet's attention span was famously short. And what happened when the next big meme came along? Then there was the other, more unsettling development, the think pieces. By mid-afternoon, op-eds began popping up across tech and business sites, dissecting what #NapElon really meant. Is Elon Musk's sleep deprivation a warning sign for Tesla? Asked Business Insider. The dark side of hustle culture. Even billionaires can't outrun burnout, declared Wired. Some articles framed the nap as an endearing moment of humanity. Others used it as a jumping-off point to critique Tesla's notorious overtime demands. A particularly scathing piece in The Atlantic asked, If the CEO is this exhausted, what does that say about the workers on the factory floor? Elon, for his part, seemed to be enjoying the chaos. He held an impromptu all-hands meeting in the factory cafeteria, where he joked about the memes, showed off early nap pod schematics, and in a move that surprised everyone announced a new company-wide policy: mandatory recharge breaks for employees working more than 12-hour shifts. The room erupted in applause, though a few skeptical whispers lingered. Was this just PR? Would this actually change anything? As the workday wound down, Jake found himself staring at his phone, scrolling through the endless stream of #NapElon content. He had started the day as a nobody. Now he was something else. A catalyst. A cautionary tale. A footnote in Tesla lore. He wasn't sure. All he knew was that tomorrow, the internet would move on. But for Tesla, and for him, nothing would ever be quite the same. The laughter and viral memes had barely faded when the real storm hit Wall Street. By 8 a.m. the next morning, Tesla's stock price had dropped 4.7% in pre-market trading, a plunge that sent shockwaves through investor circles and triggered a cascade of panicked emails between Tesla's executive team and its largest shareholders. The financial analysts' reports were brutal. Musk's Napgate raises governance concerns, declared Morgan Stanley. Is Tesla CEO distracted by side projects including sleep pods? Asked Goldman Sachs. The underlying message was clear: what the internet found hilarious, the markets interpreted as instability. And nothing made billionaires more nervous than unpredictability. Inside Tesla's Palo Alto headquarters, the board of directors had convened an emergency meeting. The mood in the glass-walled conference room was tense, the air thick with the scent of overpriced coffee and unspoken frustration. Seated at the head of the table, Robin Denholm, Tesla's chairwoman, scrolled through the morning's headlines with a deepening frown. "Elon, we need to address this," she said, her voice calm but firm. "The narrative is spiraling. First the nap photo, then the tweet, now this." She turned her tablet around to show the latest Bloomberg piece. Tesla's Nap Pod initiative sparks investor fears over misplaced priorities. Elon, slouched in his chair with his arms crossed, looked more annoyed than concerned. "It's a fucking meme, Robin. The stock will bounce back." "It's not just a meme," interjected Antonio Gracias, one of Tesla's longest-serving board members. "It's the perception. We're in the middle of ramping up Cybertruck production, battling delays in Berlin, and now the headlines are about napping? The optics are terrible." Across the table, Ira Ehrenpreis, another director, leaned forward. "Elon, we're not saying you shouldn't take breaks. But the way this played out unplanned, uncontrolled, it makes Tesla look unserious. And with the SEC still monitoring your every tweet." "Oh, come on," Elon snapped. "Since when does taking a nap make me unserious? You know how many nights I've spent on the factory floor this quarter." The debate raged for nearly an hour, some directors arguing for a formal statement to reassure investors, others pushing Elon to temporarily step back from social media. A few even suggesting he publicly shelve the nap pod idea to refocus attention on Tesla's core business. Through it all, Elon remained defiant. "You're missing the point," he said finally. "This isn't a distraction. It's an opportunity. We're getting more free press than we would from a Super Bowl ad. And the pod, it's not just some gimmick. If we can patent this, it's a new revenue stream, corporate wellness contracts, maybe even consumer sales. You think Google and Amazon won't want these for their campuses?" Silence fell over the room. The board members exchanged glances. It was classic Elon turning a potential liability into a moonshot. But would it work? Meanwhile, downstairs in the PR bullpen, Lydia Cho was fighting her own battles. Reporters from the Wall Street Journal and CNBC were demanding comments. A particularly aggressive hedge fund manager had just gone on Squawk Box to declare that Tesla needed adult supervision. And worst of all, an anonymous post on Blind, the notoriously leaky workplace app, claimed that Tesla's factory workers were being pressured to skip breaks to meet quotas, directly contradicting Elon's recharge rhetoric. Lydia buried her face in her hands. How had one stupid photo started all this? Back in the factory, Jake Reynolds was doing his best to stay under the radar. The initial euphoria of his notoriety had faded, replaced by a gnawing paranoia. Every sideways glance from a manager felt like a threat. Every laugh in the break room sounded like it might be at his expense. When Diane Harris summoned him to her office again, his stomach dropped. But instead of firing him, she handed him a non-disclosure agreement. "Sign this," she said. "Its standard covers anything you might have seen or heard related to recent events." Jake scanned the document. It was dense with legalese, but one clause jumped out. Employee agrees not to discuss, depict, or otherwise share any internal communications or observations regarding Elon Musk's activities or habits without express written consent. He looked up. "Is this because of the photo?" Diane's expression was unreadable. "It's because the world doesn't need a sequel." As Jake signed, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just crossed an invisible line from being the guy who captured a moment to the guy who'd been silenced by it. Outside, the sun was setting over Silicon Valley. Somewhere, a Bloomberg terminal flashed with the latest update. Tesla recovers slightly after Musk hints at major product roadmap update next week. The cycle was already turning, but in quiet corners of the internet, new threads were popping up. Did Tesla just gaslight us about burnout culture? Why did that employee sign an NDA? What aren't they telling us? The nap was over. The real wake-up call was just beginning.